Well, hello and welcome to another one of our interview series. Today, I'm so pleased to have with me here Jacinta Gallant, who is a lawyer, mediator, and a very good friend of mine from Prince Edward Island, Canada. Welcome, Jacinta.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm so happy to be on the show.
And as a practitioner, Jacinta brings a very refreshingly practical, authentic, and non-judgmental approach to the way that she approaches conflict with her clients. Her approach here is what we're here today to explore. So in any conversation with separating spouses, she believes in really digging deep into looking into those really difficult issues and having those difficult conversations. And she believes in looking at the why. And the why is really what we're here to talk about today. So let's get going. So Jacinta, first off, when former spouses are negotiating their post-separation issues, what have you seen as far as obstacles in reaching agreements or in progressing that conversation forward?
Yeah, well, because people who are separating are leaving a very intimate relationship, and often there's very strong emotions. So many of the obstacles that get in the way of reaching agreement have more to do with the emotional, psychological separation than even the practical, legal, or financial. Though those are certainly matters that need to be dealt with. So I would say that the biggest obstacles have to do with how we understand one another, and that we're so at risk of making assumptions and bringing judgments to every conversation we're going to have with the person who's no longer committed to the relationship that we thought we had. And so helping clients check their assumptions at the door, watch the judgments that they're making, both about themselves, because we can be really tough on ourselves at the time of separation and divorce, but also how they're judging the behavior of their ex. And so doing that work is about really clearing up communication channels so that they can look freshly at one another at a time when that's often not where they're feeling or where even their friends and family might be. So it's a big challenge to get through the communication obstacles. And when we do that, clients are more able to reflect on what they need, right? And what they know their family needs, so that they can then be open even to what their ex needs.
And so, in those conversations, let's talk about what we would want to dig deeper for. So when we're checking those assumptions, when we're going below that tip of the iceberg there, in the negotiation world, we talk about the difference between a position and an interest. Let's talk a little bit about what that is and how that relates to what you were just talking about, how checking your assumptions and how that really relates to what is the difference between a position and an interest.
Yeah, good. And so for those listeners who are maybe not used to the negotiation theory, think of a position as it's really a possible solution. It's your ideal outcome. But we call it a position in negotiation because clearly if it were the ideal outcome for the other person, and if you were able to reach agreement, it would be a solution. And so positions come across as demands. You will do this. This will be the schedule that we will follow. I'm keeping the house. You're going to pay me this much per month. Mm-hmm. And then there might be justification for why I should keep the house, why this should be the parenting schedule, why you should pay me this amount, or why you owe me. And so what we get stuck in negotiating, particularly where people are ending very intimate familial relationships, is that we can get stuck there at the demand so that I only hear what you say you want. I only hear it as a demand. And I only hear what you respond with or what you say you want as yet another demand. And we get tunnel vision. So what we want to do, and it goes to your introduction, we're really trying to get at the why. So if I know your position and then I know your demand, I know what it is that you're saying you need to have or you want to have. If I don't understand why you want it, then I'm going to be stuck with defending back and just saying, no, you can't have it because it's not what I want. And so if we can get underneath the demand, which we're calling a position, it may be that in my demand that the parenting schedule occur in this way, that the kids are in my home from Sunday night to Thursday night for sure. Maybe my why has to do with homework. Maybe my why has to do with the fact that our children are going to school in, let's say, French, as many kids do in Canada, and I'm the French-speaking parent. Maybe my why is actually very easy to understand when it's expressed in a way that doesn't say, you don't count, or we're going to do it my way. Mm-hmm. Because people hate my way or the highway. Mm-hmm. It just never gets us anywhere. It's just boom.
And so what one person may have intended to be a proposal actually comes out as a demand. And so there can be that difficulty in conversing in that way, because you're actually speaking different languages. You're just making a suggestion. It's coming out as a demand, and without the why to understand it, the reaction to the proposal is simply impasse. It's simply a no.
Yeah.
Where it can be really difficult.
And if you don't have help or great sort of ability to check yourself, even the why can be a justification. Well, this is why I should get it. And so where we work with interests and to try and shift people away from the justification for why they should get what they believe is the right or fair or just result, or what's best for the kids, it's to understand what are the elements underneath it. So that we can ask the question, to look at solutions that say, so you need a parenting arrangement that addresses the unique homework needs of your children who are in French immersion school, and that recognizes the important role that both of you will play in the children's lives, and one that is also flexible because one of you has shift work and the other one works regular Monday to Friday. And so that we ask the questions to look at solutions that will meet everyone's needs. And so really what interests are the needs, concerns, fears, hopes that explain why I'm demanding what I'm demanding. And what we find is when people hear it that way, and mediators, collaborative lawyers, therapists, coaches can help clients articulate their needs, hopes, fears, and concerns in a productive way, where often when we're just engaged in that more, let's call it positional or combative conversation or debate, we're not hearing one another. And so one of the things just to remember, and those of you who are listening who are experiencing your own separation now, please remember that it's really normal. Even when you weren't going through a separation, how often did you say, that's not what I meant? Or how often did you hear your spouse say, that's not what I meant? So we know that human communication is always rife with misinterpretation. And so having someone to help you, and for those of you who can get the support you need, that person can help make sure that the communication and interpretation that's going from one to the other is accurate. And then we work with that to help you create solutions that will meet those needs, address those concerns, and get you as close as you can to what you hope for.
Mm-hmm.
To get you out of tunnel vision and begin to imagine a future that has many possibilities.
Mm-hmm. And it's so important, as you describe, the various professionals who can help you with getting below that tip of the iceberg, to getting to those deeper conversations. And I talk a lot at Up a Notch Learning about being empowered, and that comes with being informed about the various options that you have for proceeding forward. And at Up a Notch Learning, we're not an advocate for any one particular process for separating families. When I say process, I mean negotiation process options. There's collaborative divorce, there's do-it-yourself, mediation, arbitration, divorce court. There's various options. And at our at Up a Notch Learning, we're not an advocate for any particular process. But if a separating spouse or separating family is interested in making sure that their professional can help them to dig deep, the choice of professional is really important, and doing your research on that professional is so key, because there are some practitioners who may not have that skill set, that it can be troubling, and you won't get that just by nature of the professional that you choose.
Well, speaking as a lawyer, I mean, I can say that if you're going through a separation, the choice you make about the type of lawyer that will help you will have a huge impact on your family. Lawyers are trained in an adversarial system. And we consider it, in the traditional way, our jobs to take one side of the case and argue it and push it forward through
push that position forward.
Push that position
Right?
forward. And that, you know what? That's a great example. We're taking our clients' positions and we're putting them forward, hoping to get them. And yet, most family lawyers across the world would know that we have a huge impact on families if we don't offer them a resolution process. And so in Canada, for example, our national law requires that lawyers inform separating parents of their dispute resolution options, because we've learned that the court system isn't the best place to manage parenting disputes, and even financial disputes from people who sometimes I even hate saying once loved one another, because, you know, with the right process, I've seen couples choose to separate, and with the love that they have for their own children, they're able to still love one another, just in an entirely different way. Mm-hmm. And you meet them a couple of years after the work that you've done with them, and they're settled and happy. They had a chance to learn how to be resilient and to learn how to understand each other better. Mm-hmm. They don't have to be best friends, but they can still care for one another.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about that for a moment. You know, people separating families come in to meet with their lawyers or their therapists or any divorce professional, and they're often in a place of great pain, emotional pain, financial pain, physical, you know, various different pain, and part of our job is to, of course, to help them to move through that, to get them to resolution. But let's talk for a moment about going to those pain points, because so often when people come in, I mean, they don't want, you know, when you're engaged and you've got a wedding and, you know, well, we've got preparations for a year and we can't possibly get married before a year because we've got to do all this prep work and groundwork and et cetera, et cetera. But when people are separating, I actually want to be separated yesterday. I divorced yesterday. I don't want a whole year worth of the celebratory, preparatory stuff. And so often people want to get straight to that resolution. And what can be missing so often is actually going to those pain points. And when you describe that the clients that you see 2-3 years later, where they're in a really good place, often it's because they've gone to those pain points and they've taken that time to build that foundation on which they can have a healthy future relationship, whether that's co-parenting, whether they don't have children and they're just friends or just simply former spouses. So let's talk for a moment about going to those pain points and what the difference is that you've seen when people accept going to those points. Yeah, it's so interesting, because there's two things that we often hear in a law office. And one is, I just want this to be over. And then the other is, I'm terrified I'll end up in court. And so when you think about how often people are coming to see a lawyer, so I'll speak as a lawyer, they're full of fears that they'll lose control of their family, of their loved ones, of their children. It's terrifying. Mm-hmm. And so where I think the difference is in the way I approach clients is we help them prepare for their meeting with me by doing more than just facts and figures. And we ask them to actually do some self-reflection using a workbook that I created that helps, let's say, like almost prime the pump for difficult conversations. Because no matter what, if you want it done yesterday and you're also terrified of going to court and you really, really want most people to feel that you have separated or divorced with dignity, then having the conversations with help might be the best decision you can make for yourself. Forget the children and forget your spouse, because you'll be more resilient. You'll have a chance to discover more things about yourself as an individual adult going forward in the world, because the crisis, whether it was chosen or not, of your separation is enough motivation. Think of I often liken it, think of a self-help book. So if you're not in a crisis or you're not really in trouble on some level, you might choose, that looks like a great book, take it home, read a couple of pages, and then it sits on the shelf, perhaps forever. If you're going through a separation, then your motivation to try and get through it in the healthiest way will lead you to access help that will be way more relevant and effective
just because you happen to be going through something that motivates you to get that help. So Up a Notch Learning is a great example. If I'm not worried about how my family's going to transition to 2 homes, I might see, oh, that's great. Oh, I'm glad that's there, but I'm not accessing it because I'm not needing it. But most parents, whether your children are grown adults or still little people that you need to raise, are going through something, and those pain points are painful. So rather than avoiding them and entering into something sort of done is better than perfect, if you access the professional services that can help you engage your own sense of curiosity about yourself, about your future, and even about your ex, you're going to become a deeper and a healthier person. And that isn't like therapy necessarily. This is about being a human being going through a shitty time. Oops, are you allowed to swear on this show?
Bleep.
So if you're going through a difficult time, the transactional or business only approach will feel cold to you. So you might say, I just want it done, and you want to retain a lawyer who's just going to get the job done. I don't think you're going to feel as good as you would if you chose a process, whether it's, again, do it yourself, but having some coaching or mediating or therapy work to help you get through it, or working with a collaborative lawyer who understands how to bring in the people that you'll need to make you as whole as you can be before you make those difficult decisions. Because Stephanie, you and I know these decisions are often made way before you are emotionally ready. We're asking families, parents in particular, to make decisions when they're still really smarting from the whole idea of the separation. And what I like to do in my practice, whether it's collaborative or mediation, is to help people understand that you can work out some things now, and then you can take some time. And as you take time to heal, you'll be more equipped to make decisions and to respond to the really helpful things that your coach or lawyer or mediator or collaborative lawyer might be able to offer.
And I always recommend too that if we can, the longer that we take, or as in the longer that we go between sort of a temporary resolution on some things and then sort of giving it time, coming back together, another maybe temporary resolution on another few things, or tweaking something that we already had agreed to, and kind of continuing on in that vein, the more likely it is that the resolution that you reach is sustainable, because you've had time to sleep on it. You're not just making a decision on a whim, or I just want this over and therefore I'll decide such and such. It's so important to be able to sleep on those agreements, and to really to ponder whether that is right for you. Try it on for size. Maybe you need to tweak something or add or take away.
People are terrified to do that in the conventional stream, because of conventional justice system lawyering in family.
Finality. You want finality.
They're always pushing people to get her done. And I think, let's just try this. I also think it saves people money. I swear, I have often said to clients, well, you don't know what this is going to be like 6 months from now. And so we could spend time speculating, and you can keep paying me so we can wonder and speculate, or you could try for 6 months. And when you come back in 6 months, you will be in a different place, because time changes us. The distance from the moment of crisis and pain slowly does shift us. And I just find the clients are better able to make decisions after they've tried something out.
It's also hard too when you try to, if you've got 85 issues to resolve, if you try to deal with all of them, it really becomes overwhelming. Whereas if you can sort of string it out over time, it can be less overwhelming. I want to just relate one particular story when we talk about going to those pain points. I had a client who just came in to see me recently, where they had separated and actually divorced. It was about 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. And they wanted, it was sort of, as we described earlier, it was very quick. Let's get it done. We don't want to take a lot of time or spend a lot of money on this. Let's get it done. Yeah. And when the client came in to see me a while back, they were recounting how there's all of these, it was a snowball effect. There's all of these issues that have come up, and I really got to the bottom of it. And really what it was is the feeling of being steamrolled, is not participating in conversations. And so therefore, none of this person's, proposals were being counted, and the other person was sort of steamrolling my client. And so it's interesting, because what I reflected on was how when they tried to do it really quickly before, they didn't do the work of balancing that power, or balancing the responsibilities, the parental roles between them, to gain the respect by both for the other. And it appeared that the one spouse or the one co-parent was possibly not not respecting the parental role of the other. And so if we had done that work at the outset, and not just done it so quickly as they had perhaps wanted, we would have been able to do that foundational work that the last 4 or 5 years worth of issues that have, 1 or 2 issues don't cause you to call your lawyer, but, after it's been a snowball effect, you end up calling them and saying, there's all of these things and I can't do it anymore. So that pain work is really important, because what I uncovered is there's a lot of resentment that builds up because you don't feel equal, and then it can blow up, and you've spent all of these years co-parenting and without being at the full potential of your role that you otherwise could have been.
Yeah, and I think that honestly, I think part of it too is people have assumptions about what lawyers should, like, what our role is in their separation and divorce. And those who are not informed about lawyers like us, who are holistic and collaborative, and we want to integrate their values, their needs, their concerns in the whole conversation to reach agreement, and that we want to do it efficiently. It's why I created the workbooks. I swear, like I want our clients to be prepared for the decisions they need to make. And I know they don't want to spend all the time having those conversations with me.
On an hourly rate and in the pressure cooker of your office, and they want to do it on the comfort of their own home. Yeah.
So we have such an influence on people that it's a shame. Well, that's not a shame, but even our role as lawyers can lead people to think that we might actually know what's best, even though they know we don't. But there is this funny dynamic in our relationship. And so for the people, for the Up a Notch family community, I want to really encourage you to know that you can find lawyers. And I think you'd have to say that we're innovative lawyers who want to work in a collaborative way with you, not for you. And we want to respect that you've got the wisdom about your life, and you're going through a really tough time. So you might have some blind spots or this tunnel vision that the only thing I can possibly do is this. Yeah. And so our job is to take you from a very difficult spot and help to open that up. And that's the whole shifting from positions to interests, means finding ways to understand what you need or hope for or want, and the many ways that can be met. Because the more we can expand the possibilities, the more choices that you and your ex-partner have, so that you can have a thriving, not just surviving transition. So
and when you use the word collaborative, my sense of what you mean by that is not necessarily the capital C. There is a process called the collaborative divorce process, and if viewers have seen some of our other material, we talk about that as a specific process that's got some elements to it. But what I'm hearing you mean by the word collaborative is constructive, right? Because so often divorce can be seen as a destructive process to a family. And what we're looking for is to help our viewers get the sense that there are a lot of lawyers, mediators, coaches, people who can help you as a divorce professional untie the knot of separation in a constructive way. And that's what I'm hearing you mean in the word, using the word collaborative, because I want to make sure.
I also mean to stand up for lawyers. Because I think that what happens is we have such a bad name out there. If you only watched television and movies, I mean, the lawyer role is ridiculous if you're thinking about a family transition. And so I'd like one of the messages to be that eventually you're probably going to need a lawyer. But don't be afraid to reach out to a lawyer early, because if you choose properly, and I'm going to say we're all over the world now working in a constructive, collaborative, conflict resolution way. If your lawyer only tells you about the court option, they're not doing their job. Mm-hmm. So go to another one. And if you're struggling to find the kind of lawyer that will respect your family by respecting your ability to make decisions, then we're going to have to create a resource list. But I'll tell you, like, there are so many good lawyers around the world who choose not to go to court anymore at all, because they see that I'm one of them, we see the destruction of what happens over there. It's still a good system. I mean, our court system's still probably the best in the world in Canada, but it's still a system that doesn't know anything about you and your kids. So it's probably not the best place to go for decisions unless you absolutely have no choice. So for the most part, if you're choosing a lawyer, maybe make sure that they mention dispute resolution options. Maybe you want to think about, are they the type of lawyer that will simply write a bunch of letters back and forth?
Well, and we've got a module in our Healthy Thriving Families 101 course, which talks about how you choose a lawyer. Yeah. And part of the big piece that we always push at Up a Notch Learning is to be informed ahead of time. Yes. Do your research. Yes. Whatever your choice is, don't let it fall into your lap. Go out and seek what you're looking for. And so if you trust and believe in what Jacinta is talking about today with respect to the importance of digging deep, the importance of getting underneath that surface, the tip of the iceberg, and why that can help to resolve family conflict for good, right? We're talking about a permanent solution here where if you do have conflict, if you can do these kind of things while you're going through your separation and divorce, once you get to the other side and you've got a piece of paper or an agreement or a court order that describes your parenting plan and how your future is going to look, what we hope to have created is the co-parents' ability to resolve conflict themselves in the future. And so you can now be your own dispute resolution providers. You don't have to necessarily go back to your divorce professionals, but if we've done our job, we've given you those tools and we've helped you to learn how to co-parent better so that when disputes come up, you can effectively put them behind you and resolve them. Yeah.
I mean, it's basically so that you don't need us anymore.
Yep. But exactly.
Yay. I like that.
So I want to conclude our interview with my favorite part, which is my top 3 tips. So in every interview, I like to have our viewers leave with some practical tips. So let's hear it from you. What would be your top 3 tips for helping families to prepare for those difficult conversations and to move beyond the positions into the interests, digging deeper?
Well, I'm glad you gave me a heads up that you would ask this question, because I've probably got 50 tips. Okay, here's one. It's about trust. So if you're going through a process and you feel like trust has been broken, and so often in a separation and divorce, people will say that, I don't trust you, or I don't trust him anymore. And so I'm going to just say, don't treat trust as an all or nothing thing. That the way I work with clients is to break it down into workable parts and figure out the parts that you can still have and the parts that you can rebuild, and maybe accept that there's some that you may not rebuild. But trust is not an all or nothing thing. That's one. Second, separation can be your catalyst, your motivation for a better future. Make it that. Take the time to grieve and feel the sorrow and pain, but make this be the jumping off point for you to take all that self-reflection and pain and turn it into something better for your future. And 3, do that for your kids. Your kids don't want to know that your life was wrecked because you guys got divorced. In order for them to see healthy, thriving adults, you got to have a life. And so don't think of it so much as shielding your children from your pain. I don't mean it that way. I mean, manage your pain and learn the skills of resiliency and what you can take into your future so that your kids can go, wow, bad things can happen and good things can come out of it. That's a life lesson that your kids need to know, because otherwise, all the evidence says they internalize a lot of the reasons for the divorce as being partly theirs or all of theirs. And so I have a very good friend who has a beautiful daughter who's profoundly disabled. And so my friend used to say, I need to have a life so she never thinks that she wrecked it. So think of that and have your life. You can.
And healthy, thriving families will help to build and create healthy, thriving, resilient children.
Yeah,
and it
absolutely.
starts with the parents, because we're teaching them the healthy relationships, healthy self, and that will help to build the skills, because kids learn by seeing.
They do, and they want to learn, and they want to see you be okay. So don't fake it. Get the resources and supports you need to be okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jacinta. We are so thrilled to have had you here today. As always, you shine in providing this kind of information to families. And the best part about it is your authenticity. This is truly what we're getting from Jacinta today is truly what she does on a day-to-day basis. And there are so many lawyers and divorce professionals out there like Jacinta who can help you in that constructive way. And so if I can give you any one final last tip, it's make sure that you're informed and do your research. So thank you for joining us again, Jacinta.
Thank you.